Welcome to day 5, which is the last day of Coffee and Curriculum. My name is Kavina Miller. I am your host, and today I have the wonderful Kimberly Coulter. We are so excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining with us today. Today we are talking about Brewing Innovation, Future Trends in Curriculum Development. So today's session is about exploring emerging trends and technologies in education, the impact of everyone's favorite word, AI, or artificial intelligence, also talking about virtual reality or augmented reality on curriculum design and delivery, adapting curriculum to meet the needs of the changing workforce, incorporating interdisciplinary and project-based learning approaches, predictions for the future of curriculum development and education. Kimberly Coulter is the author of In the Money School and Succeed with Speed. Coulter is the CEO of Keys from Kim LLC, where she creates a wealth-building curriculum daily and helps clients have a high-yielding, comprehensive investment portfolio by night. She holds a bachelor's degree in sociology, an elementary education teacher certificate, and a master's in public administration from the University of Michigan. She also holds a K-12 administrator certificate from the state of Michigan. As a former teacher and principal of the first STEM certified school in Genesee County, Michigan, Coulter is committed to showing students easy to implement wealth-building concepts. So, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm ready to get started.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. All right. So the first question that I have for you is, what are the most significant emerging trends in education today, and how do they impact curriculum development?
I would say some of the most significant and exciting trends that are occurring in education are the integration of technology and digital tools, as well as STEM education and project-based learning. And all three of those initiatives I'm very excited about. I think that's it'll be very critical to the development of instruction and curriculum for our students.
Absolutely. And I know there's a lot of people who registered who are not only curriculum builders, but teachers who have been in the game for 20, 30 years, and now all of a sudden you have student papers being written by a computer, and it's a little scary, but the point of this session is how we can take that uneasiness, fear, unknown, unawareness, all of these new things, and put it into something that we can chew and digest. But then also things that may not be so scary, like the project-based learning initiatives. Those are really exciting things because it can really take education to new heights. So how do you see the role of technology evolving in the classroom over the next decade?
Technology is going to continue to play a huge part in instruction and curriculum. It's going to be ever increasing. I don't see an end to that. And then when we think about AI, artificial intelligence, that's the big buzzword. The benefit of that is that it helps to create more personalized and individualized learning. It's so exciting because say you have a classroom of, we'll just say, fourth graders, and in many of our urban areas, our students are not performing per the standardized testing criteria. And so if 40% of the students are not achieving a mastery of a certain standard, we'll say multiplying 2 digits by 2 digits, the way that student A, the error that student A is making is not necessarily the same mistake that student B is making. And so with AI, we're able to adapt to those personal, individualized strengths and weaknesses, and help to remediate those problems more effectively. And so that's so exciting because as the teacher, that's just one individual, one very professional, very highly trained individual working with maybe 30 different students. And so what AI does is to help to offset some of the challenges that can occur in a classroom and create more learning and learning faster. Another awesome, phenomena that's taking place is the introduction of virtual reality, where students are 100% immersed into virtual learning experiences. And also with augmented reality, where there's a real-time, actual practical component coupled with like a digital tool. And so that allows for more engagement with students. Sometimes we have in urban settings particularly, which is where the bulk of my experience is, we have difficulties with attendance, and student engagement. And so with these tools being actualized in these classrooms, is just going to make a more robust and a more fun and interactive learning experience for our students.
Absolutely. And I think when you kind of phrase it and put it in a way where it could be used for things such as that, student engagement, knowledge, and we're trying to enhance experiences of both the student and the teacher and those working in the school. I think that we will have a better grasp of how we can tackle things like AI and AR and
Mhm.
virtual reality, because it is very new. And I guess because of the rapid pace of how it's happening, we
Mhm.
can't hide it from it anymore. So now the question is, okay, how can we use this outside of um, looking at papers being turned into AI? Like there's so much
Mhm.
more you can do with these tools outside of just that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes. Mhm.
So you did touch upon, how you can use how a teacher can use it. But how do you see that being integrated into a curriculum design and then being delivered out to school districts?
So, what's really exciting also is AI and technology. It gives more rapid results. So, one thing that it's going to be able to do is eliminate the time and the effort that teachers and school leaders have to put on the front end to analyze data. That's a really time consuming task. It's really very tedious. And so, with AI, that component can be done very quickly. And so we can get real time feedback to students, adjust our instruction, and deliver, more accurate instruction based upon the needs of each learner. We can also use the results of those assessments to, again, reteach if necessary, and just improve our just overall instruction to students.
Right. And I think that's another thing too, where if we're looking at time, I know there's been a lot of discussion just in society in general, social media, amongst the workforce, amongst the workplace, is that there doesn't seem like there's enough time. So we're trying to roll out new curriculum to teachers to get a handle on it after they've been using the same curriculum but for so long. Um,
Mhm.
Professional development hours are, not required, and now you have to use, like, it's just a constant um change, and you want to try to do your best, but it's like, how am I supposed to fit everything in there? But when you use technology for tools um to take back your time, I think that's another perfect example of how teachers and educators can really use it to their advantage. And it's like, oh, it's okay, it's not so bad as we think,
Mhm.
right? um
Right.
you know can you share examples of how maybe virtual reality or augmented reality or even AI, how they're being used to enhance learning experiences?
Mhm. So with virtual reality, for example, students can say utilize headsets and be actually transported into a human body, and they can explore the different systems, cells within the body. And so that's really exciting, because sometimes, even for me, and I'm speaking as a former STEM principal, sometimes some of these concepts, we'll just say in science, they can be very abstract. and sometimes a bore to students. And so when they're able to go into a human body, for example, virtually, it brings those concepts to a whole nother level. That's when you have students that say, wow, I might want to be a doctor, or wow, I might want to, be a psychologist. So it just brings those concepts to life. And then similarly with AR, for example, one of the things I like about it, it breaks down barriers. And my experience is in urban education. Um, we might want to take our students to a field trip, but we might not have funding for that. And so AR could, for example, allow for a virtual field trip to a museum, and students can, have a virtual gallery walk, and then apply some of the knowledge that they have learned in previous social studies lessons into the museum. For example, facts about the artifacts or facts about some of the exhibits that they see on their gallery walk. So I see AR and virtual reality as being a game changer and something that helps to equalize the educational platform.
Absolutely. And when you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, I wish we had some type of, this type of technology, it's in school. Some things would be a little bit more interesting to me. And it has nothing to do with necessarily how the lesson plans were rolled out,
That's
but
correct.
science was never like my thing. I'm an English person,
Mhm.
liberal arts college. That's my thing. So when it came to
Mhm.
the sciences and the math, I was like, I'm trying hard because I do want to do good in school, but it was never something that my brain just naturally grasped, like my brothers who's into like engineering and science and the numbers.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking back to I think it was ninth grade, and we dissected an owl pellet with
Mhm.
like the tools in science class. That was the most memorable. I don't remember anything else from any of my science classes.
Mhm.
I remember dissecting the owl pellet because it was so hands-on and
Yes.
visual learner. So it tapped into that side of my brain that I needed it to. But we didn't do many projects like that I think would just have
Right.
been so helpful when it came to,
Mhm.
certain interests. And the point of this is to not please students, but the point of this is to enhance their learning experiences.
Mhm.
Because they're the students. That's why they're here. And then they go out into society and become the doctors and the psychologists, right?
Right.
The artists and the teacher and they become all these things. They go into
Mhm.
law enforcement, they go into all these things. But
Right.
because we live in such a high pace, um, fast moving technology world, I think utilizing those tools to be creative would really shift how
Mhm.
we look at technology being used in the classroom. Um,
Mhm.
so definitely you made me think all the way back to
Well, you make an excellent point. So many of our learners are, kinesthetic, or they're hands-on, or, auditory, and they need these different mechanisms, or, modes to reach them, because the times of just reading out of a book, I mean, that's only appealing to a certain percentage of our learners. And so we have to open the door up, to give everybody the opportunity to learn in the modality that they learn best in. So you make an
right,
excellent example with the owl pellet project.
right, absolutely. And I think even knowing your students' learning style also
Hmm.
will make a difference in how you approach this type of technology, because then you're like, oh, I didn't know that literally half of my students are visual learners, so maybe I should try this. And I just think there's
Right.
so endless possibilities that you can do. It's just a
Hmm.
matter of knowing what tools you have in front of you, and maybe teachers and educators, paraprofessionals, district leaders, whoever, maybe they just don't know,
Right.
because it's moving so quickly,
Hmm.
and
And that's what I found too during some of our trainings. It was difficult to, pry the teachers out of the room, because they learned in those same styles, and it was very engaging for them too. So I think, like you said, just when things are new, they seem intimidating, or, there's a learning curve that takes place, but it will be for the best.
Absolutely. And I think this goes into my next question is what challenges we do talk about a lot of the positives, but what
Mhm.
challenges do educators face when you start to implement things like AR and VR technologies
Mhm.
into not just the curriculum but into the classroom?
Mhm. Well, definitely, the professional development piece is going to be critical to get the staff their buy-in, to see the benefit of it. Sometimes challenges would occur around funding for the professional development, and then we mentioned time earlier in our conversation for that professional development as well. Um, Oftentimes, the technological pieces or components that are necessary to implement these programs, those are the budget is just not there for that, and so it takes some long-term planning, maybe a 3-year plan or something, to be able to purchase the equipment in pieces,
Mhm.
over time. And so in 3 years, we'll be able to X, Y, and Z. And just, that equity piece, making sure that uh, AI, VR, AR, those tools are not just dreams for urban students, but they're accessible to them as well, because it's going to be absolutely critical.
Right. And I think that's the other thing too, when you're looking at maybe some of the disparities, like, funding and
Mhm.
accessibility, and you have environmental issues as well. Like there's just a lot of other outside factors where it's not just um I keep using the same example because this is the conversation that I just see so much online is my students submitted a paper and it's all AI. What do I do? It's like,
Mhm.
there's so many other
Right.
outside factors and challenges that, that come into play when we're talking about these type of technologies. And
Right.
it's keep that in mind. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think we're dealing with
Definitely.
a lot more than what's being put in front of us, you know?
Absolutely. Correct. Mhm.
Yeah. And also something you mentioned too, um, when the teachers were learning the teachers, how they uh adapt to change and how they receive knowledge. And this is
Mhm.
for, my district leaders and, maybe my university professionals to keep in mind, your staff and faculty, they're also learning as well.
Right.
Every teacher is a student to a student to a student. It just
Yes.
keeps going,
Mhm.
there's never like, okay, like I'm the professor and I have nobody else who teaches me. No, it's a continuous type of learning.
Absolutely.
So you
Yes.
have to keep in mind like your professors and your adjunct, your faculty, your staff, they're learning as well. So tap
Mhm.
into that side of their brain and see how are they chewing and digesting this type of information when it comes to technology, and don't
Mhm.
always assume millennials are technology people, so they're good, they already know what to do, and my
Right.
veteran teachers, they need more help because they're from year XYZ and they've been here for 20 years. It's like
That's right.
that's not the case at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
Millennials, we're not as young anymore. We got two new generations after us. So I think we need to, update that narrative a little bit. So, um, but yeah, it's just things to keep in mind when you're moving forward with curriculum building and technology. You made
Mhm.
me think of that when you mentioned it.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So my next question is, how can educational institutions ensure their curriculum remains relevant to the rapid changing needs of the workforce? So goes right into what we were talking about.
Right. And I think we always have to include just thinking about strong partnerships with industry leaders, um, bringing them into the conversation, looking at labor market trends just to make sure that what we're doing makes sense. We want to make sure that things remain relevant, And it should just be like a cycle, like a continuous cycle. We get feedback from the industry leaders, we get feedback from the market trends. Students are in place, they enter the workforce, and we receive feedback from the students as well. And it just should be a continual cycle of feedback, continuous improvement in that area because things change so rapidly. It's just critical that we rely upon each other to make sure that it remains as relevant and real, hands-on, practical as possible.
Absolutely. And now that you mentioned the students, I'm not trying to move so quickly, but the follow-up question that I have is, what skills will be most critical for future graduates, and how should the curriculum be adapted to teach these skills?
Mhm. Well, I think critical thinking is absolutely critical. Problem solving is going to be very important to have. And some of those skills that we call soft skills, which I really don't like, I don't like that term because they're just as important
Right.
as the so-called harder skills.
Right.
And when I'm talking about soft skills per se, I'm talking about creativity, collaboration. I get a lot of feedback from leaders in industry, and what they say is, Kimberly, students that, or they're adults then, but the young adults that are entering the workforce, sometimes they don't take directions from their supervisors well. Some of them lack a ability to work together. And so that's not soft. That's a hard skill because that could put you on a list to possibly lose your job, and be not eligible for other opportunities. So those type of things are very critical. The ability to work with one another, the ability to um, think critically, because a lot of times the solution is just not going to be something that you can easily Google. It's going to require some brain power. And these are some of the skills that AI, VR, AR can never replace. And so those are the types of things that we have to teach our students. And we can do that through project-based learning, where students work on tasks together. They come up with solutions and they see that there's oftentimes more than one solution. And then
Mhm.
it's a matter of coming to an agreement on, well, which is the best solution or what solution should we pursue? And that I love project-based learning because it's interdisciplinary, where it ties in several different disciplines. Um, and so that teaches students how to develop these critical thinking skills.
Right. And it's you hit upon something so important is these technologies, they cannot replace, and we're not looking for anything to replace, like you said, the creativity and the critical thinking and the time management, all these things that they
Right.
need for when they enter the workforce. We're just saying, looking at the balances of it, and
Mhm.
knowing that these skills will be critical. So you do a balance, you do the technology, incorporate it, and then do some hands-on things where you're teaching critical thinking. um
Yes.
you're thinking about time management, you do a time management
Mhm.
project,
Right.
you do those type of things, because that's going to
Mhm.
help them when it comes to the technologies. It's everything is intertwined and is also about,
Yes.
so that's really important what you said. And I hope that for the people who's listening and watching, I hope that they take that into account when they're looking at their curriculum for the following school years for the future. Next question that I have for you: what benefits do interdisciplinary and project-based learning approaches offer in today's educational landscape?
Oh, that's a great question. What project-based learning does is allow students opportunities to solve problems almost in real time, definitely, but also in practical situations. Sometimes traditional textbooks. I know when I was in school, it was very limited problem solving that was actually applicable to the real world. And so project-based learning gives students the opportunity to tackle some of these challenges and see how different subjects are integrated. For example, my In the Money program, it talks about careers in real estate. As a STEM principal, I noticed that there were many opportunities in real estate that I was unaware of when I was in school. And so I created a curriculum that teaches students about a plethora of different careers within the real estate, life insurance fields. And so we tackle issues, for example, of blight. We go
Mhm.
to properties and we look at what a home inspector would see, looking at
Right.
it through the eyes of a home inspector, what challenges does this property present? We look at redlining, we look at um, just challenges in neighborhoods.
Right.
And so it's project based, and it's something, for example, that you wouldn't see in the textbooks of yesteryear. And so
Yes.
when these individuals they exit the program or they enter the real world, they are more equipped to tackle the challenges and come up with solutions that are credible, solutions that have a chance of working, something new. Um, the practices and the solutions that we've implemented in the past, some of them worked, but many of them did not. And so project-based learning helps students to come up with fresh ideas. It helps them to work collaboratively and to work together, utilize critical thinking skills in order to develop solutions for our world.
Mm. Yeah. And first of all, that's amazing to even, present those opportunities and present that curriculum um to students, because it's almost like, oh, you think people would know because we do have technology, people could just Google, but it doesn't work that way. Technology doesn't work that way because we're still
Right.
humans. So there is a lot of knowledge that we don't know. And you hit on something important, because then I think about access and exposure. We have students, it depends on where you are, you're going to have a different type of exposure to certain things. So
Yes.
even I brag about my niece because her drawing skills, a lot of my nieces, and if you can draw actually, but this one niece, her drawing is just it looks like anime that you watch on TV. Like, I'm just like, I can't believe that you drew that. But then she said, oh, I think I want to be the medical illustrator. I said, a medical illustrator? I
Wow.
wouldn't even have thought to say. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, you
that's
want to be an
awesome.
artist, you want to put your things in the gallery. She goes, no, I want to be a
Right.
medical illustrator. I want to be the one
Oh,
that
wow.
draws in the books and in the textbooks for studying for medical students. And I'm sitting there like,
Wow.
stunned. I didn't even know what to say to her. He's 15. 15.
That's
So I'm sitting
awesome.
there like,
Wow.
okay, but that, growing up, we had the jobs you have are doctor, lawyer, firefighter, police officer, teacher.
Mhm.
There wasn't really outside of that. So anything outside of that was like, I don't know anything else about that. You may not make a lot of money. You may not do this. You may not do this. And it wasn't until, you got older, you're exposed to more things. It's like, oh, why don't you go into real estate? Oh, I didn't know that. But there's all these other
Right.
components of real estate that you could go into. It's not just one type of thing.
Right. And then it
Yeah.
helps for students to think about things differently. It's almost like, in addition to the interdisciplinary projects and approaches and the way you think about stuff, it's also the way you see things. Because I know for my students, we might walk past a property, it's dilapidated, the windows are broken, the bricks are falling off, the roof is caving in. And so, you might walk past that every day and say, well, that's ugly, that's blight. Another person might walk past that and say, I see $1 million right there,
Mm,
because it's that's what it's worth,
right.
after you fix it up. Or I see profit. That's the word that I see when I look at that building,
Mhm.
and so it just opens up, and then that makes you possibly think about other things. Well, how would I be in position to buy this property, or how would I be in a position to uh, find somebody who wants to buy the property and I'm the one that's making the repairs on it? Or how would this property being renovated, how will it increase the value of the properties that surround it, or how would this blight elimination increase pride in the community or hope in the community. So,
Mhm.
and I just use that as an example because that's one of the things we teach in our curriculum. But
Mhm.
my point is that project-based learning, it gets the ball rolling in a person's mind on ways that ideas and content is connected. And sometimes you'll see similarities in something you would never have imagined. For example, a psychological concept, it might be relevant here, but it might be absolutely relevant when you think about the inner workings of a computer, and then you're able to see, wow, that almost like a Venn diagram is something that we use in education. What the similarities of two concepts that seem like apples and oranges, but my goodness, there is a connection here. And
Mhm.
that's how we come up with cures for cancer. That's how we come up with, solving some of these worldwide problems that we have. And so project-based learning, it just takes the cap off of learning and allows for more exploration and solutions.
Absolutely. And that word is perfect, is exploration. I like that a lot. That's something that I think moving forward, when we're this whole theme is talking about future trends, is moving forward um to understand that exploration piece is
Mhm.
critical to adding to everything else along in education that we know. How do you envision the future of curriculum development as a whole?
Um, I envision it where more learning styles are incorporated into curriculum. Um, most of the curriculum, they're almost as asides. Okay, well, if we have some kinesthetic learners in the room, we'll do this one activity at the end of the chapter. Or if we have some auditory learners, which inevitably we do, when we get to the end of the chapter, this is something that they can do. I see those components being more foundational, integrated from the very start of the lesson through the end. I see um, student engagement being more of a priority, less sit and get, less lecture style settings. I see technology being heavily woven into the uh, the curriculum as well. And I see just a greater need overall for greater personalization of the curriculum. And again, AR, AI, those are going to be some very exciting things that just will not be on the peripheral of the curriculum, but they'll be very instrumental in student learning.
Absolutely. So now, if we're incorporating our educators, whether it's K through 12, or we're looking at higher education as well, how can educators in these institutions prepare to remain practical and relevant for these changes?
Mhm. Well, we definitely have to partner. We can't work in silos. Like I'm an educational institution, and work from within. We have to get other entities and stakeholders on board. And again, that includes industry leaders. That involves the community. Even as again, when we think about some of these entities, they seem, well, they're not relevant, but even housing, they need to play a part in these conversations, and even the neighborhood. Um, it's interesting to me. I think of times where I've read or I've heard conversations on one end, and then the neighbors, they will come to me and say, well, no one even considered, asking us, what did we think? And so it's a better solution occurs when we put everybody at the table, because it might be somebody, they say the smallest thing, it might be a sentence that's only 6 words, and then the light bulb comes on like, wow, I'm so glad that you shared that because we would never have known. And then again, that creates for a more robust, a solution that will last, the tests of time.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're talking about, you know, a couple days ago, we talked about collaboration, but what you're speaking on is inclusion.
Yes.
And making sure that we're not leaving out, you know, our neighbors and, you know, community leaders and parents or caretakers or paraprofessionals or co-teachers or adjuncts.
Right.
Not excluding them from these conversations that we're having. And I think that's why coffee and curriculum is so special to me, because we have everyone from all over trying to do the same thing in education. We're all in the same, you know, world here. And we're just trying our best to help teachers and help students as well. So I
We're all
think
in the
that's
same
extremely
cup.
important. We're all in the same cup of coffee. See, find it in. I already know. I already know who knows me that's watching and be like, oh my goodness, so corny with her jokes. I love corny jokes. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Stay tuned for a special announcement after this. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.